Tonight, the United Arab Emirates has made a decision that changes maritime security in the region. And York Catholic District School Board's tough call on raising pride flag in their schools. From the vaults, how can entrepreneurs survive inflation? Prince Khan explains.
Entrepreneurs really have to do a lot to sustain their business, and they have no one else to look up to. So ultimately, all the work comes down to them.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Catherine Bullock. The United Arab Emirates is no longer a part of a US-led maritime coalition meant to combat terrorism and piracy in the Red Sea and Gulf areas. The UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs says its decision comes after extensive evaluation of its security needs. It also says the UAE is committed to dialogue to advance regional security and stability. Experts are dubbing the decision as a significant shift in the dynamics of international cooperation in maritime security. The coalition consists of a 34-nation task force and is headquartered at the US Naval Base in Bahrain. Data from Alberta's election shows greater Muslim voter turnout exceeds the margin of victory in 18 electoral divisions. The data is shared by the Canadian Muslim Vote, a non-partisan voter mobilization and education charity. The charity says these figures include 12 out of 14 divisions that were won by 5% or fewer votes. The executive director of the Canadian Muslim Vote says the Alberta election swung around Calgary. He says the results show that Muslim voters can make a difference in elections. He says Muslim voices are loudest when they vote. There are over 100,000 Muslim voters in Alberta. Pride groups are criticizing the York Catholic District School Board for its decision not to raise a pride flag. Last night, a slim majority of trustees voted against the motion to raise a pride flag, with 6 voting against and 4 voting in favor. A pride advocacy group based in York Region says the decision shows that York's Catholic schools are unsafe for the gay community. It says parents, caregivers, or any gay community members should consider the board's approach before seeking employment with them. The board's decision comes after months of controversy on pride issues. Meetings have been attended by people for and against the idea of offering support to the gay community. In a news conference yesterday, the board's chair said he voted against flying the pride flag because it conflicts with his faith. This position is held by the Archdiocese of Toronto. China is contradicting claims made by the US that a Chinese J-16 fighter jet made an unnecessarily aggressive maneuver last Friday over the South China Sea. China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman says the US jet was violating China's sovereignty, while the Pentagon says the US reconnaissance aircraft was flying in international airspace when it was intercepted by the Chinese jet. The South China Sea has long been a subject of contention between China and some regional countries. These opposing sides do not agree on who has sovereignty over that sea. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Sound Vision, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad. Entrepreneurs are those who are willing to take a risk to bring an idea to market. A recent article in Forbes quotes Joe Chatham, who is founder and managing partner of USA 500 Clubs LLC in Boston, with this quote: "The self-employed are the only people I know who will work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for someone else." What's it like to start your own business as we come out of the COVID lockdown into record high inflation? To talk to us about what that means and other aspects of entrepreneurship in 2023, we are now joined by Prince Khan. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Glad to be here. Thank you, everybody.
I really loved that quote, work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours for someone else. But I gather he's not the only one who says something like that. Is this also your experience working with entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. And the biggest challenge with entrepreneurship really is that you are your own boss. So you have to basically take on all the roles in your own business. When you're an employee, you have some set standards in terms of what you need to be doing on your day-to-day job. But as an entrepreneur, you're the sales rep, you're the administrator, you're the your technical guy or a technical lady. So entrepreneurs really have to do a lot to sustain their business, and they have no one else to look up to. So ultimately, all the work comes down to them.
That can be very exhausting, especially if you maybe you're good at one of those, but not all of those, and suddenly it's all on your shoulders. How do people handle that?
Yeah, so one of the things that entrepreneurs can do is look for support with mentors or strategic alliances with organizations that can support them in a different manner. So, for example, if you're strong in numbers and you understand financials really well, you can handle that part of your business no problem. But if you are, let's say, struggling with marketing and you're not, adept to really know how to do your own marketing, develop your own value proposition, develop your own sales forecast, at times it may make sense to bring on a strategic partner, an organization that can support you, or even bring in an employee or an intern that can kind of support you on that end. So know your weaknesses and know how to capitalize on your weaknesses by looking at it from an external perspective instead of taking it on yourself if you're not adept to really knowing what you're doing.
That can be hard though, especially if you're really starting out from the very, very beginning. You might not even have the funds to work with someone else. So how do people overcome that?
Well, if you don't have the funds, then there are internship programs that you can potentially even look into. And there are a lot of internship programs out there that are free, and you can bring on a student that can really support you in your initial steps in running your business. And at times, obviously, you have to also take on that role as well to learn that role specifically so you can teach others. So it's sort of a two-way street. So not only do you have to bring someone on eventually, but you also have to do it yourself. And how I look at it, it's more of a value add to your business more than a cost. Because if you're bringing someone on to do something where you're struggling, in the longevity of your business, it's going to be worth your while compared to not doing anything at all or trying to figure it all on your own 100% of the time. So
go ahead.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. You were going to say so and then something.
So yeah, look at opportunities where you can partner with schools and organizations that may be able to provide you volunteers or individuals that are looking for that experience.
We've been talking about this keyword entrepreneurs without maybe even saying what it is. Is it a synonym for a small business owner, or is there something particularly special about the word entrepreneur and the person who's an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's really a broad definition. An entrepreneur is really someone who is able to take a business and execute that idea. And contrary to that, there's also another word called entrepreneur, which is looking within organizations and organizations having their own lead in entrepreneurial ventures. So entrepreneur itself is a broad term just because of the vast amount of work that you have to do and the amount of responsibilities you really have.
You're a business consultant, so that means people are coming to you asking for advice and things. What's maybe the number one question you're getting? There's been a lockdown. COVID really affected a lot of people with their employment. They lost their jobs. Now we're in a period of record high inflation, which is making everything really, really expensive. What's then the number one or two things that people are coming to you asking you to consult on?
Absolutely. So again, a lot of businesses right now they're generally scared because they don't know what's going to really happen in 2023. Inflation is at an all-time high. It reached about 8% in June. It's only come down to about 6.8% now. So entrepreneurs are really trying to figure out, how much can they increase their prices without, sacrificing the businesses that they generally have. But one thing I do want to let entrepreneurs know is that it's an expectation now, really, that your prices have increased. And it's because inflation is 4 times the amount that it normally is on average. So consumers have that perception already. So if you haven't really looked at your financials, now's the time to really do so and see how you can capitalize on increasing your prices. So your dollar value and the dollar that you get from in your business from your clients is able to sustain itself in the longevity of things.
Okay, that I have to ask you, that sounds like you're saying it's okay to raise prices because people expect prices to be raised, but maybe that's not based on a business decision. They're talking now about things like greedflation and shrinkflation. Is that connected to what you're saying?
In a way, but like at the end of the day, what happens when, let's just talk about inflation for a second. So what happens during inflation is the dollar that you have, that you earn in your pocket, it devalues. So for example, 20 years ago, that same dollar could buy you hundreds, maybe a couple $100 worth of groceries, right? But now that same dollar is not worth what it was 20 years ago. So every year, that average increase of 2% is a common denominator. So it always happens. We're just not attuned to it because our wages increase or we get a pay raise. So at the end of the day, consumers have that expectation. But now, because inflation has increased up to 8% this year, this is 4 times what the average is. People are expecting to know that the prices will increase because everyone around the world, including Canada, is experiencing increases in prices. So it's just an expectation now. But the amount you increase it to, it really depends on what your clients are willing to pay for that service.
I've seen people, amongst my friends and family who have started small businesses, and it's like a very hard slog. You don't get vacation, you don't get health benefits, you don't get retirement benefits. Sometimes you don't even get paid. So you mentioned about how you might get a pay increase to match inflation, but is that a more normal experience, that kind of experience, or we have the Elon Musks and all the famous celebrity entrepreneurs? Like where does it kind of fit?
Very good question. And we call a business like Elon Musk's business a unicorn. So sometimes you are lucky in the sense that you're able to establish a business that is able to exponentially grow over a 1 to 2 year period, maybe 3-year period, just because of the demand and the amount of people that are interested in buying your product or service. But not every entrepreneur, I'd say majority of them don't experience that. And it is a slow progression to get to where you need to be.
I've heard that sometimes it can take up to 5 years for you to see a return. But on the flip side, I've heard someone say if you're not making money after 18 months, it's not a work, it's a hobby. Take it into the backyard and shoot it. I think there was somebody famous who said that. You probably know that. So how do people balance that decision making about, okay, it's not going so well, do I slog it out or do I look for something else?
Yeah, it's really about the scaling of that business. And if you feel that there's opportunity in the future, 5 years is, I guess, a common number that they use. But ultimately, what you have to look at is what are you investing into the business? So if you're investing nothing, for example, if you have a service-based business where you're like a marketing consultant, you may invest $1,000 to $2,000 in your initial startup costs, which is relatively low. And your payback is probably within a year, maybe a lot less. But if you're starting a full-fledged restaurant with buying all the equipment and all the necessary pieces to run your business, it's going to cost you a lot more, hundreds and thousands of dollars to recoup that money. It will generally take you about 5 years. So you have to understand, are you in the business of running something because you enjoy it, or are you in the business of running something that you want to scale it and want to bring people on to help it grow to the next level? Because there's only a certain level that you can get to as an entrepreneur without having that support come in to now take your business to the next level. So are you willing to give up your knowledge and your expertise to someone else who will help you get it to the next level? That really depends on the entrepreneur.
So it's really industry. So it's really an industry specific question and answer there. Now we're almost out of time, about 30 seconds left. How about ending on a little tip for any viewer who's contemplating, should I, shouldn't I?
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship is one of the most rewarding things you can possibly experience in your life. It's the most challenging experience that you can ever go through. And every individual should try to do it at least once, in my personal opinion, just to get the experience of what is it really like to run your own business. Because some people think it's very easy. I want to be my own boss, but it's really more than that. You are your own boss, but you're also responsible for everything and anything. Customer complaints, customer fulfillment, dealing with your sales process, hiring people. So it is a lot of work, and you have to be adept to that responsibility. So in my opinion, if you have the capacity to take on some risk, entrepreneurship is definitely something you should try over the next coming years.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. and giving us that little snippet.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.